times can be something that feels a little hidden. Maybe you don't see the youth on Sunday evenings or Wednesday evenings gathering in the landing, or see them going across the street to the relatives to serve or to more place where they're serving their neighbors. But they do incredible things. So we'd like to share a little bit more about what they do. As we begin, I want to ground ourselves in one of my favorite quotes from Kinda Creasy Dean. She's a professor who works in youth ministry, and she wrote in The God-Bearing Life. She said, all bearers that help us establish identity. Only the church allows us to see ourselves as God sees us, favored, beloved, and blessed. And as many of you may have been participants in the Anxious Generation study on Wednesday night and saw that there are so many mirrors which our youth see themselves through, and often those are negative. I'm grateful for Martin and for Andy, for this church who provide a mirror of love for us to see ourselves. So today we're going to hear from Martin and Andy. Martin is our director of high school youth ministry. He's been here for almost 6 years. And Andy is our director of middle school youth ministry, who's been here for almost 2 years. Is that right? They are wonderful colleagues, wonderful leaders. After an AD share, we have a wonderful panel of middle school and high school youth. They'll introduce themselves a little bit more when they get up here, but we're glad that Ellie Bachnight, Hudson Sweeney, Virginia Bachnight, and Peyton will be here. Thank you for Peyton Majors will be here. Thank you to them for joining us. Before Martin and Andy kick it off, I'd love to open us in a word of prayer. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, we give you thanks. Thanks for people who love us. Thanks for your love. And thanks for the reminder to see that. We pray that you would help us to hold up the mirror of love for ourselves and for one another, that we would see what you see in us, people with purpose, belonging, and love. We pray that as we gather together today, you would help us to quiet within us all the things that are clamoring for our attention. Busy to-do lists, people we need to call, things we must tend to, and instead help us to listen. Listen to the voices of our youth, listen to a vision for what ministry can be, and help us to ask questions with curiosity and with hope. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. So I'm going to ask Martin and Andy to come up, and as they do, you might notice on your chair or on the chair next to you that there's a pen and a piece of paper. What we've gotten in the practice of doing in our faith talks is having people write down any questions that they have. So write those down on that piece of paper. You can ask any question that you'd like, and hold that up when you'd like to ask it. And I will come around, and our greeters will come around and gather those, and I'll help moderate those questions. That's proved to be a good practice for us. So Martin and Andy, take it away.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited that we do have so many people who are interested in youth ministry at Covenant. Youth ministry is a lifelong passion of mine. I've been here, like Grace had said, for almost 6 years, working with your high schoolers and college students. I've been doing full-time youth ministry since 2013, and I've loved almost every minute of it. It's been a really fun journey for me.
Hey, everybody, I'm Andy Wertz. I'm the director of middle school youth here, and I've been here for 2 years, and this is my first position with church and youth ministry in a professional capacity. I'm so excited to be here and get to know our kids and love on them even more.
And just another, Andy is currently in seminary and studying for his Master's of Divinity. And I graduated with my Master's of Divinity in Christian education a couple of years back. So your youth are in moderately qualified hands. We at Covenant have a really cool youth program, and we have a very specific focus that not every church has. Youth ministry is not just about babysitting your kids until they leave your home for college. We focus on 4 things primarily. Fellowship, which is we provide a space and the kids can come. We can do all kinds of fun things together, and that's what keeps them wanting to come to church, wanting to grow a bigger community, make friends that are here at church. We do study. Every Sunday morning, we engage in Sunday school. We have Bible studies specifically for our high school girls and other opportunities throughout the year where we learn more about the Bible and our faith, our theology, the things that make us Christians and make us wonderful disciples in the community. Service is a huge part, not only of the youth group, but also of all of Covenant, as you know. We have a beautiful service partnership for both the middle schoolers and the high schoolers to engage in. And finally, we get to worship. Every month we worship. You'll see the high schoolers up in the balcony, and you'll see the middle schoolers in the back row downstairs. We get to worship on the first Sunday of the month, and it's a lot of fun.
So we wanted to share a little bit about how many of youth come, and that may be a surprise or it may not. But we have 140 middle schoolers who are registered as members of the church. And then we have about 87 of those have come at least once throughout the year. And then we have a core group of about 26 who will attend at least 3 times a month. And then on top of that, our kids, we're really excited, and both of us, to know that our kids feel so comfortable. They bring their friends and their visitors to the church. So we have a ton of kids, well over 20, who have come multiple times throughout this year, but are not necessarily affiliated with this church. You might not see their parents in the pews on Sunday, but they are coming and participating in our youth programs. So what that looks like weekly, though, is we'll have an average of 24 kids on a Sunday morning, 21 on a Sunday night, and 14 on Wednesday nights for open table.
Similarly, for high schoolers, we have 107 that are on the rolls. We have 86 of those that we'll probably see at some point this year. These are our numbers from the fall, but as of December, we had 65 of those that we had seen at least once so far in the fall. And like Andy said, we have visitors almost at every single program. So blessed to have that our kids want to invite their friends to be here too. And the high schoolers have had, at this point, close to 20 as well. What this looks like for our age breakdown, as you can imagine, as students start to be able to drive themselves and as they gather more things that they're having to do extracurricularly, we see them a little bit less. But we're blessed to have a awesome group of seniors that are still invested with Covenant, which is not something that you'll find at every church. So you could see in this graph that the numbers on the rolls, we typically see about 60% of those at some point during their high school time. Not everybody who's on the rolls, even into adulthood, actually comes to church, but we do our best to engage them in other ways other than coming to youth fellowship. And those numbers have stayed strong throughout from our freshman class to our senior class. The reason you might not have seen our high schoolers and middle schoolers around campus is that we don't meet in the fellowship hall or in the welcome center for youth fellowship. The high schoolers live in the basement right below us. If you've ever served at Room in the Inn, you'll see our room. We have a lot of fun with our room. We have an air hockey table and a lava lamp, big TV, flashing lights. It's a lot of fun. We love being down there, but we are sequestered down in the basement. And similarly, the high schoolers or the middle schoolers are on the 3rd floor of the education wing, right above the power up room, if you're familiar with that. So that's why you might not have seen us as much.
As part of our program, each grade gets a specific milestone, a kind of big event that will ritualize some transition from year to year. The milestones are very popular with our families, especially for people who may only come once or twice a year. They'll choose to come to our milestones. In 6th grade, it's a transitional event that starts at the beginning of the school year to welcome them into middle school youth. And then in 7th grade, it is a discerning spiritual gifts workshop with other members of the congregation to help see how they can apply their spiritual gifts, hobbies, and interests into the life and ministry of the church. And then in 8th grade, we have Quest, which kind of operates as its own program throughout the year. It starts off in November and ends in May, and that's what we call our confirmation here. And the Quest program operates with its own curriculum in Sunday school. And one of the main features that really defines it here at Covenant is they get partnered with a mentor from the congregation, and that person will walk with them in their journey of faith throughout the year.
Our high schoolers also have milestones for each year that they're here. Our 9th graders have a big party right at the beginning of the school year where they come together and we make a time capsule where they'll write themselves a letter to themselves that they will open on graduation Sunday or senior Sunday, their senior year. Their time capsule, it's a paint can, and it even has the date for their senior Sunday in 2030. 29. That's a long time from now. They'll also have a Polaroid of themselves so we can laugh at how much we've aged in the last 4 years. And they fill out a favorite things inventory so they can say, oh, wow, I liked that band back then. That's kind of weird, gross. So we do that and we make a class banner for them to hang on the wall with all their names. And that will stay up for all 4 years that they're here. Our sophomores have a more advanced version of faith and sexuality, similar to our fifth graders. Our high schoolers are talking about things that are important about their bodies and about their relationships with other people and what that means for their faith. Our juniors have a opportunity to discern and learn about discernment skills so that they can hopefully make some more informed big decisions in the coming years. And we normally go away for that. And we also get to tour a small school so they can see what college might look for them. And finally, our 12th graders, obviously you've seen them preach at Youth Sunday, but they also have a whole celebration when they graduate with a breakfast. We invite their quest mentors and their families, and it's a really special event for everybody. Next up, we wanted to tell you about fellowship because that is one of our biggest focuses for our middle schoolers and high schoolers.
So our fellowship events that happen on Sunday evenings, we do some kind of activity to get together, and it looks different almost every week. This is also the time that we'll choose to go to visit our mission partners. For middle school, it is More Place. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but we'll do things like use resin and unconventional materials to make Christmas ornaments. This year, we visited the Lineberger farm, members of the church, to talk about their farm and also to connect it back to our Sunday school study in Genesis. And we've gone to TCBY and we have just had game nights. And so it looks kind of different every week. There are ways for our kids to come and also build that community with each other. A lot of our kids do not see each other at school. And so they're developing friendships from over the 19 middle schools that are represented in our youth group. And so this is also a place for people to build friendships that aren't necessarily being determined by achievement, where you don't have to be strong in school. You don't have to be strong on your sports team. You don't have to be the best at anything to build those friendships here at church where everyone is equally beloved.
So a typical youth fellowship, this is for high school, but it looks fairly similar for middle school. At 6:15, our kids arrive. Carrie takes them outside and throws frisbee with them in the parking lot while I finish up last minute prep. They come in and we meet down in the basement and we do our highs and lows, which is where we do a mental health check-in and check in on how everybody's week is going. We ask them, what was the best part of your week and what was the least best part of your week? And that way we get to hear about the things that are happening in our youth's lives and see what we need to talk about further. Then we have our program, which we'll tell you a little bit more in a minute about what we do for our program. And finally, at every one of our fellowship events and Sunday schools, we close with prayer requests. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that was our prayer request board for last year. We go around and we write down everyone's prayer requests. We put a star beside it if it comes up again. That way we can keep track of what we've been praying for throughout the year. And then finally, we close with announcements. I ask everybody, do you have any questions, comments, concerns, traumas, or haikus? And we go from this place. I don't know, but Peyton is really good at coming up with haikus. So yeah. On the first Sunday of the month, we turn everything on its head. Obviously, we worship in the morning. You'll see us up there in the balcony. And in the evening, the high schoolers go to Optimist Hall, where we take over Optimist Hall, a couple of tables at least, and everyone can get what they want for food. And we can also hang out and have some fellowship in another place. Some of the activities that we do, this is throughout the month. I'll kind of skip over this slide. Some of our activities that we do throughout the school year, we do, I love giant games. We did Giant Battleship in the fall, where I turned the room in the inn sleeping rooms into two sides of a battleship board. We made giant ships and it was great. We also played giant Jenga. First night of the month, our first night of the year, we did an outdoor party where we made snow cones. We love doing campfire theology, where we'll make a campfire down in the amphitheater and everyone can ask questions that we can answer honestly. I also love teaching a series called Adulting 101, where I can teach the high schoolers. In the fall, we learned about changing a tire, loading a dishwasher, making an easy meal, things that you might need to come and learn as well. But we do a lot of really fun and special things at Sunday Fellowship.
So throughout the year, we also have special events. So Youth Sunday, of course, is one of our big, and we'll actually start planning on working on that tonight. We also do a big fall kickoff. We do seasonal parties for Christmas, and throughout the year, we'll gather in those kinds of bigger ways. And then also, we don't stop over the summer, and we continue to have our kids engage in the life of the church over the summer, which is something that I think is a standout about Covenant. And so we've visited members' houses on the lake to go on the boat. We've gone fishing. We've had picnics at the park, gone to baseball games, things like that. Open table. We love open table. And on Wednesday nights, the youth do gather while the adults are gathered at 6:30. And a lot of them have just come tired from bell practice and choir. And we'll have about 16 kids come, and we'll do a lot of more fun activities. Wednesday night is really a good time for our kids to uh, just have fun after a long week of stress and for school. It's just a great time for them to relax and to be in a safe place and to engage in either some arts and crafts, or we've had Hopeway come and talk about coping with anxiety skills, going down to the park and playing there, all those kinds of things that help build a community.
Our open table participation is a little bit smaller than our Sunday evening participation because our kids are very busy. They're in sports, they're in clubs. We can't always see them on Wednesdays, but we try to make Wednesdays a little bit less of a it's generally a smaller program because we want it to be a time of relaxation and a time to catch your breath in the middle of a busy week. We've done Bob Ross painting nights. In a couple of weeks, we'll do our Secret Spaces tour where I'll take the high schoolers to see the top of the steeple and the sub basement below the sanctuary, all the fun things that you won't get to see ever. We love doing game nights where we'll do Family Feud or Jeopardy. And every once in a while, we'll do something special like go on a long walk to Uptown to get ice cream. Or this Sunday, we're going to work with our mission partners or this Wednesday, we're going to work with our mission partners.
Trips is also a very large component of what we do in youth ministry. We are very fortunate to take lots of trips with our kids, and that's another big standout about Covenant Youth Ministry. We'll take 6 trips throughout the year, even in middle school. So we'll go for like a 1-day quest hike. We do a fall retreat, a winter retreat, and a spring retreat for both high school and middle school. And these trips usually get between 20 and 25 kids that come on them. And then over the summer, we'll take 2 trips. We'll do a mission trip. And I think that's really a feature of Covenant, right? We love our mission trips. We love mission activities here. And so we have our kids do that because they're really fun and they're really great. Last year we went to Asheville. This year we'll go to Raleigh for the middle school youth mission trip. And then we'll go on a sort of Montreat Youth Conference experience for middle school. And this year we'll be going to Massanetta for their youth conference.
The high schoolers also go on all these same trips. In the fall, we try to schedule this around CIC and Panthers games and the school schedule. We normally will go up to the mountains. This year, we actually went just above Lake Norman, and it was a lot of fun. Coming up in 2 weeks, the high schoolers will go to Winter Place up in West Virginia to go skiing and have our retreat there, pray for snow. In the spring, we'll go to the beach. And in the summer, we go on our trip and we go to Montreat as well, which our Montreat is at Montreat. Middle school Montreat is up in Maryville, Tennessee. And we take a lot of kids on all of those trips. In the fall, we took 32 on our fall retreat. I think so far we have 22 signed up for our winter retreat, but it's still 2 weeks away, so those numbers will grow a lot. Trips are awesome.
So what does our study program look like? For middle school, it's mostly during the Sunday school hour time that's going on right now. And we'll go on a 2-year cycle for middle school because the 3rd year is devoted to Quest. So in that first year, we've set it up so that we'll study discipleship and measures of discipleship in the fall, and then Jesus and the Gospels in the spring. And then in year B, which we're on right now, we'll study iconic Old Testament stories in the fall and then rotate into spiritual practices in the spring. And those are taught by both me and by other leaders from the church. We're moving to a new model where we'll have one or two teachers or a small group take over that month and go over that unit for the month. And that's working really well to have that kind of consistent adult presence.
The most important thing, oh, sorry.
Oh, and Quest is also has their own Sunday school. It's really specifically about what do we believe in our faith tradition. And so we go over a lot of theological topics, such as what do we mean when we say Jesus is Lord? What does it mean when we say Jesus is Savior, human sin? And then throughout the experience, we're making sure that we're letting our kids explore what does that mean for them so that they're able to process, and maybe they don't agree. And we have a lot of freedom and flexibility in our Reformed tradition to have differences in what we believe on these things, but still gather together as a community of faith. And so our kids experience that as well, but we show them a lot of different ways of worship. We'll go to visit our Quaker friends this Sunday to see how they worship, and we'll go to Elevation and see in Jenkins. And hopefully by exposing our kids to a lot of different ways, they understand why we do what we do and figure out what they want to do and what they want to believe at this particular moment.
The most important thing you need to know about high school Sunday school is that we have donuts every week. That is a requirement. We follow what the church is learning through the theme this year. We started off by learning about love and learning about our heart and our mind. We looked a little bit at what doubt would look like, and we followed the Christmas story and learned more about what that looks like in each of the four gospels. Spring, we're learning a little bit more about anxiety. And finally, we'll move into the rest of the spring with learning about what we can do as disciples in our community. Sunday school is a great time, and we have a great participation, and we always are able to focus on some scripture and have some discussion about what its implications are in real life. And one more thing for our study, our high school girls have their own Bible study in the spring. It's a great time. I'm not there, obviously, but that will kick off at the end of this month.
Mission is a big part of what we do. It's how we can really show kids in a tangible way how to experience Christ, which is a lot of the questions that I get from them is like, how do we feel God, or how do we know that God is with us? And so mission, I know for me, has been one of the ways that I do that. Last year, we started partnering with More Place through Roof Above, which is one of our church's pre-existing mission partners. And so we have really committed ourselves to going and hosting their birthday parties for people who live in this permanent supportive housing who have been chronically homeless. And our kids have had really interesting experiences there, and it's been really fun. And I think it's also very meaningful. We've had some of these adults who are in their 50s or 60s say, the first birthday party I've had since I was a kid. And having our kids get to host that and give that to them is a way of sharing our gifts. We also go on bigger mission trips, but when we go on our mission trips, we do kind of a variety of different mission partners. We'll work with someone different in the morning and in the afternoon to give our kids a bunch of diverse experiences.
One of the things that I love about Covenant is that we're not doing mission tourism. We don't just go to work with people because we think it'll be fun for us. We have lasting partnerships. And one of the most fruitful partnerships that the high schoolers have had started earlier this year. We've been working with the Relatives, which is a program for teens who don't have a safe place to call home. We've had the opportunity to work with them at CIC to redo their back deck. But more importantly, on Sunday nights, once a month, we've been able to go over there, hang out with the kids, play games with them, grill out, bring a pickleball court, all kinds of fun things that we can make friends with them. We had a Christmas party with them in December. And this is really cool because these are the same kids that they get to go to school with. The kids that are living at the Relatives on East Boulevard are even on the same school bus as some of our kids. And so that partnership is just so special for them to get to see youth in other situations and to be able to make friends with them and to help contribute to their own faith. We also have a rotation of our summer mission trips. Last summer, we went down to work with Habitat for Humanity in Johns Island, South Carolina. This summer, we'll be going back to Avery County to work with Habitat in the mountains. And next summer, we're going to be going down to Reynosa to work with our partners there. And again, on the first Sunday of the month, we worship, and that's self-explanatory because you've been there. But we also get to worship at our youth summer conferences. And even if we're not up in the sanctuary, we are still having a worshipful Sunday morning.
So we also connect with our kids, and we want to acknowledge that we meet our kids not just on those main fellowship nights, but we also, Martin and I will go visit games. We'll go to visit kids when they are sick in the hospital. We'll go to visit them when they are when terrible things have happened in their lives, and go to their performances and their plays and the ballet, and all these kinds of things are ways that we go out to connect with our kids and to see them flourishing, and essentially to walk with them in the best and the most beautiful times in their life and also the most troubling and dark. And we also see our kids not just in Sunday school, but maybe they're down in the AV room working some of the cameras during worship. Maybe our kids are choosing to worship with their families instead of coming to Sunday school. And all of these things are right choices for them. We don't expect or require families to participate in what we're leading. And we trust that the church has a ton of opportunities to engage in the life of the church that isn't Sunday school, then worship, then evening fellowship. And so we want to make sure that our kids who have individual and differing needs to be able to meet those needs.
Not every youth is going to love going and playing giant board games in the basement on a Wednesday or Sunday, and that's okay. They are still children of this congregation, and we're still going to do our very best to be a part of their lives and to help their faith and sense of community here. It's not just us that are making this happen. Volunteers are incredibly important to our ministry because we have to have them. We have a council for both our middle school and high school that helps oversee our programs, help us make plans for the future, and helps us find volunteers. We have parents that come on all of our trips. Can't go on them alone, both for child and youth protection, and also I can't drive 2 buses at once. We have special project volunteers that come in and help with just one thing, like Carla Lee will come and help with our art project tonight. She doesn't have to come every other Sunday, but she's coming to help with tonight because that's something that she's passionate about. And we obviously need Sunday school teachers as well, because otherwise it's just me and Andy teaching every week, and the kids don't want that. So our volunteers are incredibly important. You might see the term advisor sometimes around the church, and our advisors are our more long-term volunteers, not just parents or people who show up sometimes to talk about the things they're passionate about. You can see a whole lot of pictures with Carrie because he's a rock star, just like Jordan Schriefer. And for the high school, I can't do things without my advisors, because having those people that develop a long-term relationship with the kids, even into college and beyond, that's what keeps them connected with the church, which is really special.
We have a very robust and thriving youth program. So if you leave with anything today, please know that Covenant is extraordinarily strong in its youth program. We are not a dying program for our attendance, which is being experienced by a lot of churches. We have a growing youth group. Our Quest program has grown 25% this year, and before that, another 15. So we have this number-based attendance, right, that is growing, but we also have that willingness to invite friends that I think is a real measure of what we are doing to make it not only just that their parents are just forcing them to come, but they feel good enough to bring their friends, that we have this opportunity. We have connections with volunteers and advisors that feels like a comfortable place to come. Our youth love to come. Some of them come without their parents. I'll see kids walking over to Sunday school when their parents are at home. I'll see kids come all the time and force their parents to be here, which is something that we love to see. And I think ultimately what we can provide for our kids is a different kind of space, that non-achievement space, a space where they know that they're loved and that they can say and act in ways that maybe they might get in trouble for at school, or they might get bullied for at school, or they might get ostracized. And then we in this place can meet them where they are, just as God meets us.
What could we do with more? We already have an incredible youth ministry here at Covenant, thriving so much more than any of my colleagues at other churches say. We have more people coming and our programs are growing and we're so excited to be here. But we could use a little bit more help. I would love for more of our congregation to know about our youth, to know about our programs, and to know individual youth so that when you see youth walking around on the circle after the worship service, you'll know who that person is because they're a part of the congregation and you care for them. We could also use a whole lot more volunteers. Kerry can't be here every single time we open the doors, as much as I would love for him to be here. But we need more people who will show up even for one time. Uh, we would love to have more of those volunteers, and that would allow us to expand our group even more. I can only go to so many basketball games in a week. And if I have a few more adults willing to do those things, our group will continue to grow and continue to take care of those youth where they are. So the biggest things that I could use from you are to know about youth, to care about the youth, to tell others in the congregation about youth and how they can help as well. I really want y'all to know how much we care for youth ministry. I love doing this. Andy loves doing this. We love the youth. We'll meet them where they are. And we're really thankful to have a congregation that does care so much about their youth. So thank you so much for being here. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Grace.
Thank you, Martin and Andy, for sharing. First, yeah, will you join me in thanking them? Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to have you guys step over to the side. And while you're stepping over to the side, I'm going to welcome our youth up. And on their way up, I want to share, I shared that quote from Kenda Creasy Dean, and I was just looking up another quote that I love. Martin and Andy were talking about one of the ways that we can continue to strengthen our youth program is to have advisors. Advisors are people who are more invested in the life of our youth. And Kenda Creasy Dean writes this. She says, youth ministry is less about counting converts than about creating missionaries capable of teaching the believers with their lives because others have taught them with their lives first. And so when I think about Covenant, I think that this is a place that has taught with their lives. I've always been amazed by this church and the way that it participates in discipleship and is involved in mission, worship, and all areas of a life of faith. And so an advisor is somebody who shares their life with our youth to encourage their lives to become more centered towards faith. So we're going to turn our time now to hearing from our youth about what you love about being in youth group, or maybe about being a teenager, or what you don't love about being a teenager. And so I'm going to ask you first if you'll introduce yourself, say what grade you're in, and say how long you've been at Covenant. So Virginia, can I have you start?
I'm Virginia Bachnight. I am in 10th grade, and I've been at Covenant my entire life.
I'm Peyton Majors. I'm in 12th grade, and I've also been at Covenant my
My name's Hudson Sweeney. I'm in 8th grade, and I've been going to Covenant my whole life.
My name's Ellie Bachnight. I'm in 8th grade, and I've been coming here my whole life.
So obviously one theme that we have is that they've all been coming here their whole life, and all four of you were baptized here, which means at some point, any number of you stood up at their baptisms and made promises to care for them and to love them. And I think a testimony to that is that they're sitting up here willing to talk about your experience in youth ministry to a bunch of adults. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for sharing about youth groups. So if you would, Martin and Andy talked a little bit about trips, and I know that's such an important part of our ministry. Would somebody be willing to tell me first about a favorite trip that you've gone on? Where'd you go? What'd you do? What made it special?
Yeah, so earlier back in 2024, we went on a fall youth retreat. We unfortunately weren't able to go to Montreat because of Hurricane Helene, but Martin still found us an amazing house where we were able to have a screen-free weekend, and we were really able just to connect with everyone. We had some great conversations, some great times, and even though it might have looked a little different than in the past, it was probably my favorite retreat that I've ever been on.
Thanks, Virginia. I think one of my favorite pictures I've ever gotten is the picture of the silent disco, where you all had headphones on that you were listening to whatever song you wanted to listen to, but nobody else could hear you. So it was pretty cool. Peyton, it looked like you were about to share.
Yeah, I mean, similarly to that, Virginia was talking about the phone-free weekend, and I think our Montreat trip over this summer, this past year, was also really impactful. There was a lot of complaining about the phones being taken as much as they were, but I think in the end, it was really powerful for us all to kind of connect on that deeper level. And I think every year it's really special, but every year that gets closer to my graduation is increasingly special for me.
Thanks, Peyton.
I think the favorite trip I've been on was the Montreat Youth Conference in 2023 because first off, we got to stay at a college, which was really cool for me and all my friends. And then we also got to connect with people from other churches in different states.
I was gonna say the same thing. Our middle school youth conference, it was really fun. The small groups are a little scary because you don't know anybody going into it, but once you make friends with people, they're just a fun thing to go to.
That's cool. Thank you, Ellie and Hudson, for sharing about that. And for those who aren't familiar with Montreat middle and high school conferences, those are for youth all across the country, largely Presbyterian churches. And so you could connect with middle schoolers from Tennessee or from California, but it's a way to connect for our church to be connectional. I'd love if you guys could share. I know that you guys have a lot of things on your plate, whether it's different activities, school, and youth group. How do you guys notice that youth group is different than other things that you do, maybe at school or even going to school? What makes it different? Peyton, kick us off. Thank you, Peyton.
I was actually with a friend from youth group the other day, Elizabeth Sloan. She's not here today, but she's a sweetie pie. And we were talking about how youth group kind of gives us the space that other extracurriculars don't really give us. It kind of gives us the space to be ourselves in kind of a judgment-free zone. And I think it's also really helpful that we have the adult oversight that we do because Martin would never let any of us be hurt, any of us be made fun of. Nobody ever feels isolated. Like it's very much we're all together, and I think that's really powerful.
One of my favorite things to see too is, everybody, there's so many different high schools and middle schools in Charlotte. So whether you're at a private school or a different public school, like these are people you wouldn't otherwise connect with. And I love seeing y'all come together. So thanks for sharing that, Peyton. Anybody else want to share what makes the youth group a little different for you?
For me, it's like everybody, you can say what you want. Like some places you can't.
Mm.
And you see people who you don't normally see. Like Andy said, there's so many different schools. And if I didn't come to church, I wouldn't know so many of these people. It's nice to meet these people and hang out with them.
Thanks, Ellie. Hudson or Virginia, you guys want to share?
I would agree with that because a lot of the other activities we partake in are sports and other things that where you don't really have the chance to be yourself. So I think that youth is just it's a peaceful space where you can share what's actually happening in your life.
I think one thing that feels important for me for youth is that you know that you are loved not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And so whatever you come whatever you say, we're glad that you've said it. We're glad that you're here. And you don't have to do the most or be the most. You can just be yourself. So some of you were at the panel on Wednesday night for the anxious generation and heard some of the challenges and joys of being a teenager in 2025. And I'd love for you to share that. Lily Murchison, who was on the panel on Wednesday night, said something really beautiful. She said that her parents often say, we know what it's like to be a teenager because we were teenagers before. And she said, but you don't know what it's like to be a teenager in 2025. It's different. And so you guys are the experts on that. What do you love about being a teenager or a pre-teenager? And what is something that's challenging about it? Virginia, why don't we just go down the line?
I think one thing I love about being a teenager is that you're able to have a lot more responsibility than you do when you're younger, but at the same time, you don't have to deal with all the adulting that comes with being over the age of 18, such as taxes and having to supply housing for yourself. But you still get that sense of responsibility. One thing that's challenging is the amount of workload that you have pressed on you, whether it's school and then you also have to manage extracurricular activities while also managing friendships. It's a lot going on at once, especially, and then you also have to worry about college applications. It's just a lot going on, and it feels like it feels like we're not given that time to sort of adjust to it and that you're sort of just thrown in head first.
I think for me, I really enjoy how supportive everybody's become, especially over the past decade and a half. I think we've come a long way in really understanding, especially when it comes to things like mental health. But on that same note, like Lily, I love Lily
Me too.
dearly. She's so great. But like she said, I mean, not everybody knows what it's like to be a teenager right now. And I feel like it's really important for people to remember that it's everybody's first time living. And we're not all going to be perfect the first time around. And we have to give each other grace for that. And I think it's awesome that we've been able to kind of learn that more.
That's so well put, Peyton. Thank you.
I love that I have the opportunity to take part in a lot of different activities every week, and I get to see new people almost every day. And one thing that is challenging for me is trying to balance all those activities with school and church in my daily life.
I love being a teenager. It's so much fun. There are bad things that come with it, like stress and anxiety and stuff. But for the most part, it's fun. You just get to hang out with your friends. I mean, you have to do school and stuff, but school's really, it's not that bad.
Thank you, Ellie. Martin and
Yes.
Andy, oh, sorry. You guys work with teenagers. What do you love about working with teenagers?
Having done this for over a decade now, I feel really privileged to be able to work with teenagers. I've gotten to take the baptismal promises that we make and put them into full effect in my life. I get to be with youth in some of their best days, when things are going really well, when they're graduating from high school, or when they get a new girlfriend or boyfriend, or when they get a new job, when they get into college. And I get to be there for some of the harder days when they're having health issues, or they get in a little bit of trouble with the police, or a parent dies. I get to be a part of their family, and I get to see them and care for them throughout their lives. And that's been really special. And also, I can't imagine another job where I get to play with high schoolers and build giant games and go on trips. I think I have one of the coolest jobs on earth.
Oh, I think it's fun. It's great. We get to do so many just like fun things throughout the week, and that keeps me really energized and happy. And also, we get to do a lot of meaningful things together, and seeing our kids make really impactful relationships or get a new friend. I know a lot of our some of the most meaningful moments to me are people who have felt really isolated and alone, and then they make a new friend at youth group, and they tell me about that, and they don't feel so alone anymore. And that just warms my heart on the days when everything is going wrong in the world, to know that we have hope in our kids to help them to become the disciples in Christ that we need them to be. It gives me a lot of hope for the future in a world that can sometimes feel very bleak.
I wasn't really planning on answering this question, but I'm going to ask myself and answer it. I think two things as you share that come up for me. One is oftentimes as adults, faith starts to become something that you have to do. And y'all are such a reminder that faith is joyful, and the word fun keeps getting thrown around. And I love that you're describing church as fun. There are so many people who don't describe church as fun, and church faith is fun. God is loving. God is good. God is joyful. And thank you for that reminder. And then the second thing is over and over again, our youth have reminded me that Andy just said, our youth give us hope, but y'all give me hope because you see challenges and you actually want to address them. Peyton, you talked about mental health. Like, we actually want to talk about that. We actually want to go to the relatives every month, and y'all show up for that. Y'all show up for the relatives and for more place. Like, you guys are a part of making a difference and have done such a great job of that. I'm going to pause for a second and remind folks that you've got pen and paper that you can write questions on. I've got a few more questions for these guys. And if you'd like to ask any, you can write those down there, and Lexi Frost will gather those and hand those over to me so I can ask them. So I was just talking about the difference that you make. Y'all have been on any number of trips, service trips, participated in mission opportunities, but also served in the church in meaningful ways. Could you share maybe a time that you felt like you've been able to serve the church or the community, and what you've learned from that, and what that meant to you?
Probably the most like impactful one I've been on has been serving with the relatives. I've served twice now, both at CIC and then one of the times we've gone over just on a Sunday night. The Sunday night one was really impactful because we were able to be hands-on and just talk with these kids that a lot of them go to Myers Park that we might see around school, and just allow both us and for them just to allow us to be kids, just allow us to be teenagers and just have conversations, um, just meet new people who might not have come from the opportunity that we've had, and just to be able to talk about the simple things going on in life and just make meaningful connection between us.
Thank you for doing that.
So during the 2024 calendar year, I was a youth elder in mission and outreach. And I think it was really, really powerful because I'm going to be honest, I didn't always understand what was going on.
Me either, Peyton.
It's hard being in a room full of adults when you're one of the only kids, but I think something that really did get through to me is how hard we work on the mission trips we plan and how much we care about things like room at the inn, roof above. Like we work really, really, really hard um, to plan those things and have them actually become a reality. And I've been on a few mission trips in the past, and I've kind of seen how hard this church has works to make that happen. And I think that's really cool.
Awesome.
One of the most impactful moments I've had serving the community was when I had the chance to throw a birthday party for the people at Moore Place. And I just think that was really great because I got to see how much they appreciated the small things, the things they didn't get every day. And it just, seeing them smile really helped show me that I was actually making an impact on their day and on their lives.
Mine is probably Youth Sunday. I think it's really fun that we get to participate in the services. Like I've done offering, I play handbells, choir, and it's just fun to be part of the service.
I know that Youth Sunday has really blessed us to hear your your sermons, but not just your sermons, but y'all have done a beautiful job kind of making some new traditions like the time with older disciples, which I just love, and the prayers that you write. And I know that a lot of work goes into that, and I'm so grateful for what we learn from you when you share that. We talked a little bit about youth advisors and about people who have shaped you. Is there somebody that you might point to who has had an impact on your spiritual journey or your life of faith?
Yeah, I know for me, Catherine Lawson, who was my Quest mentor, had a huge role in my faith. She grew up with my grandmother, so we've known each other. She's been in my life my entire life, and just getting to share that experience with her was really impactful for me.
Those Quest mentors make a huge difference. Thank you.
So, my parents are actually in the room today, right over there. And on the way over here, my mom was talking about how when I was in middle school, my COVID year was in seventh grade. So in pretty much like the key developmental years
Yeah.
of my teenagehood, I was in my room with nothing to do, and my mom was talking on the way over here about how when I joined Sunday school in the morning, she heard me laugh for the first time since COVID shut down, and she saw me smile and she saw me running around the house just having a blast with it. And she's not here anymore, but Alyssa, who was director of middle school youth, she worked really, really hard to put everything together. And I think my mom, my dad, I'm really, really grateful for that. We're all
I agree. Thank you.
I think that the most impactful people on my youth journey were both the youth leaders, Andy and Alyssa, and then also Derek Thomas, because he's taught me every Sunday morning since when I was in kindergarten and up until now.
Mine is probably Jordan Schrieffer. I've known her forever. And on the Memphis trip, she was kind of the main person because we didn't have a director at the time, and she just made it really fun.
Did you have fun on the Memphis trip? And you got stuck.
No, I did.
You got stuck. Okay, thank you. So the fun story there is that when they were in Memphis, there were two buses on the way back, and one of the buses had a really important part stolen. The converter,
Yeah,
the
the catalytic
converter, yeah, the catalytic converter was stolen from the bus. And so they were stuck in Memphis. We brought the other bus back and they came back in a, but what we were able to find was the most insane party bus I've ever seen. And I commend our youth so much because it's those moments of surprise where oftentimes the most joy comes from. And the picture of them getting in that Mercedes party bus is to die for. And thank you guys for being so adaptable. Um, one question I want to ask from the crowd that's come up is what's something that's really important that you've learned at youth or youth group that has helped you during school or outside activities? There a lesson or a memory that's helped you?
I think really just trying to be understanding of where everyone's coming from. I know at youth group, it's sometimes people are able to be more honest oftentimes than they are at school or anywhere else you might see them. So you can really hear where these people are coming from and then just trying to apply that same grace to everyone else in your life. Yeah.
I didn't mention this in the last question. I'm also obviously very grateful for Martin. He's helped me through so much, and he's been here since I started high school. But
Wow.
one thing I've really, really learned over the past 4 years is kind of just being able, like you kind of said, Virginia, to see other people's sides and not just judge someone off of black and white, like be able to really, really see someone, because you never know what someone's going through. And again, like Virginia said, youth group is such a sacred space where we can all kind of connect with each other on a deeper level.
I would agree with what Virginia said. I think the youth group just helps me understand that what people are telling you might not be what they actually mean, and it helps me give them a little more grace.
I agree with that, but I was gonna say, like, you're trying. I mean, don't beat yourself up so hard. I mean, you're trying the best you can. If something bad happens, just keep going and deal with it, and it'll get better.
Thank you guys. I love what you share, and I love that so much of what you share is about the time that you learn from one another. So we're not just like pounding knowledge into our kids and our youth. We're actually creating, and y'all do this so beautifully, creating space and you, the youth, make that sacred. And so you learn from each other, you learn from advisors, you learn from Martin and Andy. But I just love that we're not just pounding information in. We're about more than just regurgitating facts. Let me close by asking you how we might support you or pray for you or the youth group or teenagers in the coming year. How can we be supportive of you? Go ahead, Peyton.
Um, I think kind of like what I said earlier, I mean, it's everybody's first time living. I think it's really important that we kind of remember that and give ourselves and each other grace when one of us is going through a hard time, because sometimes life is really great and sometimes life kind of stinks. And we have to be able to understand that we're all just experiencing life and we have to learn to support each other and get through the hard times together.
Anyone else want to share? Well, thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Peyton, Hudson, Ellie. Thank you, Martin and Andy, for sharing so beautifully. Time and again, we've done this twice where we've had youth on a panel in the last 4 days, and every time you've blown me away. So thank you for sharing. What I would encourage everybody who's gathered here to remember is, one, how incredible these guys are. So first, join me in thanking them. We have so much to learn from you. We don't just have to impart knowledge on you. This is a relationship of mutuality where we can learn from you. And then I would also say, if you thought that was cool, or if you thought they said something cool, or if you thought it was interesting that you might want to be one of the people that they named, to be able to have your name pointed to and say, Catherine Lawson has made a huge difference in my life of faith, then we're still looking for advisors. We'd like to expand that. And so we invite you to prayerfully consider that and also to share that with people that you know. How cool that you get to hang out with these guys. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your investment and care in our youth. This is an ongoing conversation. I hope that you'll ask questions, mingle around, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what youth ministry looks like at Covenant, how you can be involved in it, how you can pray for them. And I'd like to ask Andy to close us in prayer.
Okay. Will you join me in a word of prayer for our youth, please? God of steadfast love, we give you thanks that you've brought us home, this home of covenant, and especially today, for the gift of our youth, for our divine opportunity to know them, to love them. God, your love turns the universe on its axis and brought them to life and cradled them when they were born. We give you thanks for the wonder of childhood as you sang us to sleep. God, who is reaching out to us, who will do anything to reach us, seep into the fabric of their lives and dye their hearts with humility and yearning for righteousness. Open them to a world of belonging where they see your divine image in everyone, from their mean teachers to their crushes. And when there is no belonging, teach them to make it, courage to encourage, that their actions can be the answer to someone else's prayer. Pour your spirit into them, O God of steadfast love, pour into them. And as they graduate and go beyond us, make them into new beings every morning, leaving behind grudges and learning the terrible cost of forgiveness. Lord, as adults, we ask forgiveness for the problems in the world that we leave for these youth to fix. Help them to be better than us, to remake this world free from brokenness. And in their studies and jobs, remind them of their purpose in life, to do justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly beside you. In their chosen and given families, teach them patience and faith. Lord, into each of their lives will come suffering and pain. We cannot prevent that. So remind them from your cross of redemption and that they are not alone, that they are never alone, no matter how dark the night or how cold the earth, for you are there, for they are desperate to see and to hear you. On their faith journeys that last a lifetime, do not leave them lest they grow cold in the shadow of loss and loneliness. God, whose face is electrified in its own light, illumine their way with courage that they may reach through the shadows and ask for help. Through the darkness which steals and never gives back which it takes, grab their outstretched hand and pull them close. And when the time comes for them to be reunited with you after life, welcome them home. You who wait with steadfast love at the doors of your kingdom, calling us into your supper. Today, God, we ask so much of you who have given us already the greatest gift of life. Holy God, but these are some of my favorite people. Please, I beseech you, giver of life, hear our prayer for their lives of abundance, abundance of goodness, of Holy Spirit, of light and love. Amen.
Thank you.